Hey dudes! Welcome back to our channel, Salamath 2020. I'll bring you on another topic of hyperbola. Sa ating naunang video, kung napapanood nyo, we're able to describe and identify the essential parts of the hyperbola. In this video, matutunan nyo kung paano mag-derive ng standard equation of hyperbola through a given graph and a given part. Meron tayong dalawang part dito para sa ating discussion ng hyperbola, part 1 and part 2. But the part 2 will be presented on next video. And we will focus on part 1. So our part 1 is finding the standard equations of the hyperbola through a graph if the center is at the origin. Yan, that is the origin is 0, 0. Okay, so let us learn and we develop our mathematical skills on this channel. Okay dudes, alamin muna natin yung learning outcomes natin. Our learning outcome is based on the DepEd K-12 competencies. So after watching this video, you might be able to understand and yung number 1 natin, define a hyperbola. Okay, number 2, determine the standard form of equations of hyperbola. Given the essential parts of the hyperbola, yung mga vertices, foci, and asymptotes, yan, you are going to determine the standard form of equations, yung x and y. Number 3, graph a hyperbola in a rectangular coordinate system. Okay, that will be all our 3 learning outcomes that must be achieved. So let us proceed to the definitions of hyperbola. A hyperbola is the set of all points x and y in a plane, the difference of whose distances from two distinct fixed points, that is foci, is a positive constant. How will you expound the definition? By looking at the graph of the hyperbola, our graph consists of 2 branches of the hyperbola. Each branch consists of infinitely many points. So let us consider P be the point on the hyperbola, and also given the 2 points on the x-axis, that is foci, represented by f of 1, negative c and 0, and the f of 2, 1 of the foci. Put c units away from the midpoint is 0, 0. So we have here the absolute value of the difference of the distances of p from f of 1 and f of is equivalent to 2a. Anong ibig sabihin niyan? So ang ibig sabihin niya, we have to find the distance between p and f of 1. Yan, p of f of 1 can be manipulated by using the distance formula. So we have here the square root of x, then negative c times negative, that is positive squared, then y minus 0 is y squared. So another point, which is distance between 2 points p and f of 2. Yan, still we are using the distance formula. So square root of x minus c squared plus y minus 0, that is y, then copies squared. So with this absolute value, with the use of the distance formula and algebraically manipulated, we come out with the standard equations of the hyperbola. And let us use also the c squared, e squared plus b squared, equivalently to the value of c for our unknown value of foci, another point for the essential part of the hyperbola. Okay dudes, ito na yung pinaka main topic natin, yung part 1, finding the standard equations of the hyperbola through a graph if the center is at origin, that is 0, 0. So let us take a look at the graph of the hyperbola. With our standard equations of the hyperbola, x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared is equal to 1, and we have also the value of c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, and to simplify, so we get the value of c. So we have the center at the origin, that is 0, 0. So we have also the given points on the x-axis, so f of 1 and f of 2. So f of 1 is c units away from their midpoint, which is 0 and 0. And we have also the vertices represented by b1 and b2. So alam natin yung vertices are points on the hyperbola collinear with the center and the origin. So A away from the center, yan ang ating vertex. So we have also the broken lines here. Ang tawag niyan is the asymptotes. We have the line natin una, line 1, then line 2. Yan ang line 2 natin. Y is equal to B over A x. And we have also here the auxiliary rectangle. And the other point of the graph of the hyperbola is the transverse axis, that is joining two vertices b1 and b2. So since A away from the center is A, since dalawa is 2A, and horizontally directed. And we have also the conjugate, yun ay perpendicular to the transverse axis. So in a conjugate axis, above the midpoint, that is B. So below the midpoint is also B, so equivalent to 2B. And vertically aligned. Yan ang ating lahat ng essential parts of the hyperbola. The hyperbola we considered so far is horizontal. Meron tayong mga hyperbola with its foci aligned vertically. Ito yung ang graph natin, which is the foci f of 1 and f of 2 along the y-axis. Yan. And the opposite directions of the branches of the hyperbola is above and below the y-axis. So tingnan natin yung ang equations of the hyperbola, which is foci aligned vertically. Yung y natin and x, there will be a transitions of the variable. Okay, yan. And we can still use the c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, and equivalently to c. Okay, still the c natin yan, that is the component of the foci. Yeah. So with f of 1, which is below the midpoint, yan, 0 and negative c. And f of 2 is 0 and c, yun. And b sub 1, and again b sub 2, that is a collinear with the f of 2 and the midpoint. Okay, ito yung ating transverse axis, which joining the B1 and B2, that is a transverse axis, is still, that is equivalent to 2A. And this time, vertical na siya. So, we have the segment also, ang tawag niyan is conjugate axis. So, yan. It measures 2B. Ang kaibahan lang dito sa essential parts of the hyperbola is the positions of the branches nila, dalawang branches. And this conjugate axis is horizontally directed this time. So yan. Another we have the broken lines here is the asymptotes. So line 1 and line 2, and we have also the auxiliary rectangle. Okay, pareho lang yung mga terms natin ginamit sa horizontal. Okay, let's do a summary, which is the features of the graph of hyperbola with the standard equations. Okay, given the standard equations, and also the c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Yan. So first, The center is at the origin, 0, 0. Foci, f of 1, f of 2 with their coordinates. Its focus is c units away from the center. And for any point on the hyperbola, the absolute value of the differences from the foci is 2a. Yung na-discuss natin yung kanina, the absolute value of f of 1 and f of 2 is equal to 2a with the use of distance formula. Yan ng ating must be equal to 2a. So another one is the vertices. So it is represented by b sub 1 and b sub 2. Yan. The vertices are the points on the hyperbola collinear with the center and the foci. So to illustrate, yan ang ating graph, which is the vertices shows the collinear with the center and the foci, yung f of 1 and f of 2 natin. So, okay, ito yung ating direction. So f of 1 to center, f of 1 to the vertex sub 2. It represents this line as the collinear. If y is equal to 0, then x is equal to positive, negative a. Its vertex is a units away from the center. Then the segment b sub 1, b sub 2 is called the transverse axis. Its length is 2a. So, meron na yung dalawa dyan, b sub 1 to b sub 2. Since b sub 1 to c is a units away, then the other side is a also. We have the asymptotes here, line 1, yan, line 2. To determine the equations of asymptotes, so we can use this equation with standard equation of hyperbola. So, to replace 1 by 0, so yung 1 natin palitan ng 0, yan, ayan. Then solve for y. I-solve natin algebraically, so we come out with line 1 and line 2. So yan. So yan yun. Okay, let's do our first illustrative example. Example 1. Determine the foci, vertices, and asymptotes of the hyperbola with the equations x squared over 9 minus y squared over 7 is equal to 1. Sketch the graph and include these points and lines, the transverse axis and conjugate axis and the auxiliary rectangle. With the use of this standard equation, yan, standard equation natin. Okay, just to compare to our given example. So, a squared natin is equal to 9. Then squaring both sides, so then square root of 9, so a becomes 3. Okay, that is the value of our a. And b squared is equal to 7. That is the given natin dyan sa b squared. Then squaring both sides, so b is equal to square root of 7, and this is approximately equals to 2.7. Yan. Then we can use the c squared, a squared and plus b squared, and simplify into c. So c is equal to a squared is, yan, given a squared is 9 plus b squared is 7. So 9 plus 7 is 16. Then the square root of 16 is 4. So yan ang value natin c. So we have a complete variable a, b, c. Yan, meron na tayong value. So to plot all the points, so meron tayong that is a center at the origin. So vertices natin are points in the hyperbola. So we have here the b sub 1, that is away from the center, is 3. So b sub 2, yan, positive x-axis. Yung foci natin, f of 1 along the negative x-axis, which is 4, negative 4, and f of 2 yung positive 4. Asymptotes, we have the line 1, so y is equal to negative b over a multiplied by x. So yan, that is indicated as a broken line. So the equations is y is equal to negative, since the b is square root of 7 over a multiplied by x. That would be our line 1. For line 2, y is equal to positive b over a multiplied by x. Yan ang indication ng ating line. So y is equal to square root of 7 over a multiplied by x. Yan ang ating mga components. So the transverse axis, that is horizontally directed, and this is equivalent to 2a, which is our a is 3, then multiplied by 2 is equal to 6. Our conjugate axis is vertical, and yan, and also equivalent to 2b is equal to 2 multiplied by 2.7, and that is 5.4. Then this is our auxiliary rectangle. For our number 2 example, give the equation of the hyperbola in its standard form. It is vertices are yan, and the foci are at yan ating f of 1 and f of 2. So our step 1, find the value of a, b, and c. So given the vertices yan 0 and 2 and 0 and negative 2, so bring down the vertices. So b sub 1, 0 and 2, and b sub 2. So since we know the properties of vertices, so our a is 2, then square both sides, so a square is equal to 2 times 2 is 4. So we have the a squared is equal to 4, and we have the foci, its component c is equal to 2 square root of 5, so that is given. So c squared, then square the 2 square root of 5, so 2 times 2 is 4, then square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5, so 4 times 5 is equal to 20. So we have the value of a squared and c squared. So b squared ang hanapin natin dito. So our c squared is 20 is equal to our a squared is 4 plus b squared. There will be a transition of the formula. So b squared natin yan is equal to 20 minus 4 yan. Then we have b squared is 20 minus 4 is 16. So ito yung gamitin natin na equation, since the value of the foci is on the y-axis. We know that this foci aligned vertically, so this could be our equations of the standard form of the hyperbola. So let's substitute the value of a squared, which is 4, and b squared is 16. Okay, that would be our final answer for example number 2. For number 3, find the standard equations of the hyperbola whose foci are f of 1, yan, f of 2, and such that for any point on it, the absolute value of the difference of its distances from the foci is 6. So the absolute value of the difference of its distances from the foci is given with this form, yan, b 2a. So we know the value of the absolute value given is 2a is equal to 6. Yan. Okay. Tutuin natin. So divide both sides by 2. the a, then 6 divide 2 is 3. Then square both sides, so a squared is equal to 3 squared, so a squared is equal to 9. Yan ang sagot natin for a squared. The c is equal to 5 since the foci is given. Yan, foci natin. So c is equal to 5, then c squared is equal to 5 squared. So c squared is equal to 5 times 5 is 25. Yan. Okay, that is the value of our c squared. So c squared is 25. Yan. And our a squared is 9. So our b squared 25 minus 9, that is 16. So b squared is equal to 16. Yan. So we have all the components of a squared, b squared, c squared. So we will use the standard equations of the hyperbola. Yan ang ating standard equation of the hyperbola. So you are going to substitute all the values of a squared and b squared. So x squared over 9, yan, minus y squared, our b squared 16 is equal to 1. Okay, meron tayong activity dito. So determine foci, vertices, and asymptotes of the hyperbola with equation. Sketch the graph and include these points and lines along with the auxiliary rectangle. So ito yung equation natin. Number 2, find the equation in standard form of the hyperbola whose foci are f of 1, yan, and f of 2, yan, ito natin, such that for any point on it, the absolute value of the difference of its distances from the foci is 8. And this activity is intended to you dudes to practice what you have learned from our discussions about the hyperbola. Let me see na kung may naintindihan kayo, and just comment down your brilliant answer. So be learned and be develop your mathematical skill on this channel, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and your time. God bless.